Hola chicos, hoy ustedes van a tomar apuntes de los verbos en el presente, los verbos boot. ¿Recuerdan? Aquí tenemos un ejemplo. El verbo dormir. As you can see, what we're referring to as a boot verb is a stem changing verb. The stem is the part of the verb that is not the AR, ER, or IR ending. Stem changing means that some of the spelling changes. So in dormir, it goes from the letter O to a UE. The reason we call these boot verbs is because when we draw our famous charts, it looks like the outline of a very minimalist drawing of a boot or a shoe. So we call them boot verbs because inside of the boot, we see the spelling change, and outside of the boot, these verbs behave like any other AR, ER, or IR verbs. La primera categoría, el cambio E a I. Aquí tienen una lista de verbos que cambian. You'll notice that I included the yo form and the to form of each of these verbs. So that way you can see some of the spelling changes, because not only are some of these verbs stem changing from E to I, but many of them also have a special yo form where there's a spelling change as well. So take a look. Corregir to corrijo. If you watch the notes on verbs in the present tense, you might remember that verbs that end with GIR and GER will have J in the yo form to preserve that sound. Okay? We see the same with decir, elegir. And so that's why there are these spelling changes. You might also notice that all of these verbs happen to be IR verbs. And that's true, that boot verbs where the stem changes from E to I are almost exclusively IR ending verbs. So that is a clue if you are struggling to remember which verbs follow this rule. That's one way to help narrow it down. El cambio E a IE. So here there's a little more variety. We have verbs que terminan con AR, ER, e IR. And all of these verbs, the stem changes from the letter E to IE. With some of the verbs, I've underlined which letter E is the one that changes, but maybe if you are struggling to remember for the verb despertar or empezar, for example, or recomendar, it might also be good to underline those in your notes. And again, many of these verbs we've seen before in previous lessons in previous years of Spanish, but if there are ones that you don't know what they mean, it's on you to please take out your phone or go visit Word Reference and find the translation for these verbs, okay? El cambio O a UE. And again, here's a list of several verbs that we've seen over the course of Spanish 1, Spanish 2, Spanish 3. If you don't know what some of them mean, please look them up. And something that maybe you have not noticed yet, but if you look at the column in the middle, the ER verbs, we have devolver, envolver, and volver. Devolver is to return an object. Envolver is to wrap something, like in wrapping paper. And volver is to go back or return, like as a person. And this rule applies for just about any other verb where we see this, but if you have a verb that then has a prefix, it's going to follow the same conjugation pattern. So volver is the basic verb, to return. Envolver, all we did was put the prefix en, but then the rest of the verb is still volver. Devolver, same thing. We've just put the prefix de. So If we have another verb that has a different prefix and then finishes or ends with volver, that verb will have the same conjugation pattern as volver and volver, devolver. So in Spanish, verbs that just have different prefixes will, for the most part, conjugate the same way as the version of that verb without the prefix. So that's another way to remember or to learn how to conjugate verbs that you've never seen before. That's not just memorizing a list of random verbs. Y otros cambios. El verbo jugar. So jugar changes from u a ue. Yo juego, very straightforward. And then I a ie. Adquirir, inquirir. And again, just like I explained in the last slide, both of these verbs end with quirir, but just have different prefixes. So if you ran into other verbs that ended in the same way, those verbs most likely would follow the same conjugation pattern. Y ya estamos. Si tienen preguntas, por favor, díganme en clase. Gracias por escuchar y adiós.